to the 2018 City Building Mayoral Debate brought to you by Brampton Focus Community Media. Tonight's event would not be possible without sponsorship of New Brampton, Peel Regional Labor Council, Green Frog Construction, Vision Brampton, and Neighborhood Watch Brampton. Thank you for attending and being involved in the shaping the future of our city. Tonight's event is being captured on video, and this video will be released at bramptonvoters.ca and premiered on Facebook at 8 p.m. Thursday, September 27th. And now, please give a warm Brampton welcome to our host and moderator, Michael A. Charbon.
Welcome to the City Building Mayoral Debate. Thank you very much for everybody for being here this evening. My name is Michael A. Charbon, and it is my pleasure to be here for this exceptional debate. Before we begin, we respectfully acknowledge that the land that we occupy as Brantonians is traditional territory of the Mississauga of the Credits, Anishinaabe, the Huron, Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, Ojibwe, Chippewa, and the Métis people. This land acknowledgement is a statement that recognizes the historical and continuous existence of the First Peoples, of whose traditional territories we live. It is a statement of respect that is intended to provoke introspection and to encourage action towards truth and reconciliation. So this land acknowledgement informs and reminds us to an enduring presence of the Indigenous communities in the place known by most of us as Brampton. So welcome. Thanks to everybody for being here today. We had about 750 people who signed up, and many will be able to review this on the web later on. It is debates like this that shape our society, that shape our city, and affect our lives. On October 22nd, you have the privilege and right to vote, and we hope that what you will hear here tonight will give you some information to help you in your decision. Some rules of business. Each candidate is seated in alphabetical order on the stage. The order of speaking was randomly selected previously upstairs in the green room so that each candidate has an opportunity to speak first, and that we rotate that. The debate is broken down into 6 segments where specific responses and times are outlined for candidates. Within 10 seconds of their time expiring, a card will be raised, and when their time is finished, the final card will be raised, and then I get to intervene. So, now let's please introduce and welcome our candidates for today's debate. Candidates, come on in, please. Perfect. So we'd like to thank our sponsors for tonight supporting our debate. We'd like to thank New Brampton, Peel Regional Labor Council, the Green Frog Construction Group, Vision Brampton, our Neighborhood Watch, Neighborhood Watch Brampton, and of course, Williams Fresh Cafe. Now let's welcome our panel. First of all, from New Brampton, Dave Capel. Dave, come on in. Then we have Des Farkas from New Brampton. Ms. Marilyn Vergas from Vision Brampton. And Dr. Kervinder Gill, who is the president and co-founder of Ontario Doctors. Dr. Gill. Alrighty. So let's get started. We'll begin with our candidates. We're going to do a 1-minute opening piece for you. And to start off, Mr. Balgozo, please.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you to Brampton Focus for organizing this. I'm running for mayor because I love this city. I've been a resident of Brampton for 35 years. I've raised 3 kids right here in Brampton. Me and my wife own a small business right here in Brampton. I've always been involved with the community, whether serving on a Police Services Board, City of Brampton Property Standards Committee, or Brampton Board of Trade Marketing Committee. I served as Member of Parliament representing Brampton and Sports Minister representing Canada. I have a proven record of saving billions of dollars for Canadians when I was in Ottawa, tax dollars. I know the challenges Brampton residents face every day because I face them too. I'm the only candidate with experience saving money across the board for Canadians. We need fresh approach and new ideas. I will bring my experience from the federal level right here to City of Brampton. Our city has missed too many chances to grow. I will make sure that we have a plan to grow the businesses. We have a plan to bring more businesses to Brampton. Brampton deserves better and needs a real change. I'm from Brampton, and I am for Brampton. Thank you.
Mr. Balgozel. Next up, Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey.
So everyone, this election is very clear. The choice is clear. We can go from stable, proven, responsible leadership, or we can take a chance on risky, unproven promises. Over the last 4 years, I have delivered on making city more accountable, open, and transparent. We cannot return to the drama and chaos of before. During my 4 years as mayor, we have realized the dream of bringing a university to Brampton. We've held the line on taxes, we reduced the number of senior bureaucrats, we've improved public transit, and we've secured funding for the second phase of PMH. I have voted against taxpayers-funded bailouts of private golf courses and hockey teams. As someone who has lived here nearly my whole adult life and raised my 3 boys, I know Brampton. I'm not just visiting to resurrect my political career. My opponents claim they have all the answers to what ails Brampton. Yes, we have our challenges, but most people I talk to believe this is a great city to live in, and it will get better with the right leadership. Now is not the time to put at risk what we've worked so hard to accomplish. Thank you.
Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey. Mr. John Sprovieri, sir.
Thank you, Brampton Focus. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Sprovieri. I've been in Brampton since 1964. I came to work to Brampton, moved in 1976, and I've been representing wards 9 and 10 for the last 30 years. I'm running for mayor because we have a lot of issues that have to be addressed in Brampton. I believe that the province has neglected Brampton during its growth period for the last 15, 20 years. We've been one of the fastest growing cities in Canada. So we're lacking in many issues, as you know, healthcare, transportation, safety. These are all issues that need to be addressed. Growth, we have too much growth in residential and not enough employment, which is driving our taxes higher and higher every year. And of course, you know, we all know about the car insurance being the highest in the province. We need a mayor that can work with the province and address these issues so that Brampton can become a better place. My sons and my grandchildren live in Brampton, and I'm running for Brampton because I want to make a better city for my family, for my friends, and for all the people of Brampton. Thank you.
John Sprovieri. Mr. Patrick Brown. Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
In 1985, Bill Davis finished up his time in politics, probably the finest public servant this province and this country has ever seen. At that time when he finished up, Brampton was the envy of the GTA, safe, prosperous, successful. Look at Brampton today. Crime is rising through the roof. Traffic is a mess. The 410 is a parking lot, and we lack jobs. 30 years ago, Brampton and Mississauga had almost the same amount of commercial space. Today, Brampton has 2 million commercial square feet, and Mississauga has 50 million. The difference is political leadership. If you're happy with the way Brampton's been going, then the mayor is your choice. But if you want to shake things up and start a new path for Brampton and say that this city can be prosperous like it was, join me in making sure we get Brampton back on track.
Mr. Patrick Brown. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So our next segment will feature our panel. Each of our panelists will pose one question that will be answered by each of the candidates, and they have 1 minute and 30 seconds each to answer the question. Our first question is from Mr. Dave Capel. Dave, your question, sir.
13% of the voting population of Brampton and community leaders, along with the help of Larry Beasley, created a 2040 vision. The vision was addressed the route of LRT, proposed a different route than the main street, a figure eight, which is supposed to help business development in the city of Brampton. To all the candidates, do you agree with this recommendation by 2040 vision? And Madam Mayor, do you support this proposed 2040 vision and the loop of LRT figure eight? And would you take LRT off the table of Main Street?
So this question is going to be answered by everyone in the panel, and we'll start with Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey. You have 1.5 minutes.
So my answer about the 2040 vision, I appreciate so many people came out and they were part of that consultation, and I appreciate all their advice that they came, but again, it's just a visionary document. I support a Huron-Ontario Main Street LRT route because that's where the traffic is, that's where the ridership is, that's what engineers tell us, that's what planners tell us. I did talk to Mr. Beasley. I will work with the new council as to what we're able to achieve. But at this point, we don't have any commitment from the provincial government about an LRT north of Steeles. So at this point, it is foolish to commit to a route that isn't funded by the provincial government. And frankly, I would take the $4.4 million that we're spending currently on the two parallel routes on McLaughlin and Kennedy and stop spending that money. It's wasted if you don't have a commitment from the provincial government. And I have spoken with Minister Yakubuski when I was in Ottawa a few weeks ago about our need for more transit in the city. So that's my answer.
Mr. Sprovieri. Mr. Sprovieri, you have 1.5 minutes to respond.
I totally support the vision. I voted for the vision. I voted not to bring the LRT up Main Street because we didn't believe, the majority council did not believe it was the right route. The previous council voted 10-1, believing it was not the right route. And we wanted a route where there was economic benefits to the city of Brampton. And the only routes that can provide that is either Kennedy Road or McLaughlin, coming up to the GO station. That's where there's redevelopment opportunities, where we can intensify and where we can bring in some real benefits to Brampton.
Mr. Brown, 1.5 minutes response, sir, please.
13,000 residents poured their souls and energy into building that 2040 vision. I support it. I thank council and everyone behind this. And I recall the mayor voted for this 2040 vision. By backing out now on those EAs, the problem is you're abandoning that vision that the city has rallied behind. But I want to go one further. You talk about this LRT. I don't know why we settled for so little. You know, Scarborough's getting a $3 billion subway, and we seem to be accepting scraps. It's about time we say Brampton deserves its fair share. We deserve better. Vaughan has a beautiful subway, and I'm tired of our city being forgotten. It's about time we stand up for our city, just like Hayes McCallion did in Mississauga.
Mr. Gozo, 1.5 minutes response, sir, please.
Thank you. 2040 vision is a great vision. I support it, but there's always improvements that could be made to that vision. As for LRT, it is because of council fighting, we couldn't finish that LRT. We need Brampton moving. We need LRT. As a mayor, I will go after province and federal funding as well to get that LRT done. Whatever the best route is, if to McLaughlin and Kennedy is the best route, we will do that. We need that LRT moving right now. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for your answer. Let's go to our panel again. Mr. Des Farkas, your question for the panel, please, sir.
I would like to thank all of you for being here and for Brampton Focus for putting on such a fantastic event. And my question is the following. The common sentiment is that the image of Brampton is underrated compared to cities such as Oakville. As you all know, Brampton is a fantastic and beautiful city. However, due to Brampton's image, large corporations are reluctant to make Brampton their home. To all the candidates, what will you do in the next 4 years to change this image?
Mr. Sprovieri, you're first for a minute and a half, please. Your response.
The main problem with Brampton has been a 7-year lawsuit that's been going on, dragging, which has given us a bad image with the corporate world. The people out there know that there's something wrong, and finally, this has come to fruition, a decision. This project is costing Brampton residents $100 million more than it should have over the next 25 years. $100 million. Just think what we could do with $100 million. If I become the mayor, I want to have a police investigation to hold those people who caused this huge cost to the city and the residents responsible and accountable.
Mr. Brown, you're next.
I get it right now. People are frustrated. Crime, a dysfunctional arrangement at City Hall with the mayor and council. It seems like we're all paddling in different directions. The good news is this city has so much potential. We've got a young, educated population. We're close to a major international airport. There is so much potential if we fix the fundamentals. And that's why I'm excited about this project. You look at that 2040 vision, you look at some of the big plans that our friends at New Brampton have been talking about. They're talking about beyond the horizon and how this city can be like we were. I talked about Bill Davis when this city was the envy of Ontario. I think the new Brampton vision talks about that, how we can be again. And so in terms of our reputation, we can turn that around. We have our work cut out, but there's no question we can turn that around.
Mr. Gozel.
Well, thank you. It is again comes down to the leadership at city and the council, how we promote our city. All highways lead to Brampton. International Airport is very close to Brampton. We have great Rose Theatre. We have great Garden Square. We have one of the most multicultural cities in the world. We don't celebrate the cultures enough. We don't promote Brampton enough. As a mayor, that's my first job. Promote Rose Theatre, promote multiculturalism, have celebrations right at Garden Square for different communities. That is how you promote your city, and that is very important. But first of all, we have to work as one council, respect each other and cooperation. Thank you.
Ms. Jeffries.
So I think the question was about image, and certainly I inherited a council and a corporation that really wasn't well managed, hadn't taken care of the fundamentals. We brought in Jim McCarter to look at the books, to give us some better advice, and finally, the ship is finally turning around. So the fact that we're able to now pay less interest because our credit rating has improved is as a result of the hard work I've been doing over the last 4 years. And I appreciate Mr. Brown is really excited about this program and this 2040, but he didn't participate because he didn't live here. He has no idea. I love that he wants to be part of Brampton. I'm not part of it. He didn't participate because he didn't live here, and he really wants to get on board now, but it's a little, too late. I've lived here my whole adult life, and I'm the person who's been working hard to build this city. And I was part of this council that actually built this theater. So I have the energy and the ability to do that. And I'm the salesperson. I've been the one traveling around the world trying to bring business to Brampton. And I can tell you, there are tons of businesses out there that want to come, and countries that want to come because of Ryerson University. And they love the fact that we have a talent pool that is young, diverse, and well-educated. I'm a lucky mayor to have such a great talent pool to sell to the rest of the world, and I'm looking forward to doing that in the next term.
Our next question comes from our third panelist, which is Ms. Marilyn Burgess.
Thank you. Vision Brampton was formed by young citizens in response to alarming comments made by current councillors. Comments that demonstrated a lack of respect and value for people of color and immigrants in Brampton. The rhetoric of diversity is thrown around whenever it's politically opportune, but actions speak louder than words. In a city where people of color and immigrants make up the majority, 75% of our city, it is not enough to be for diversity. Leaders must be against discrimination. As mayor, what actions will you take to build a city that includes, values, and serves all of us?
Mr. Brown, you're first, sir. 1 minute and 30 seconds max.
Well, first of all, I think everyone on the stage loves diversity, loves inclusion. That's Canada's story. We're a country that's been built by those who have come from all around the world, and Brampton is there's no better example of that beautiful mosaic. But let me say, I disagree with the question that cascades everyone on council. I have worked around the city with members of this council, and there are great members of this council that love this city's diversity, that are involved, that I see going to the Gajoras, I see going to the mosque. Seeing Michael Peleschi at the Masjid in Mount Pleasant, sounding how much he loves their participation in his community, being at the Gajora with Jeff Bowman. I don't agree that this council doesn't support the beautiful mosaic of the city. I think we all do. We love our diversity and we're proud of it.
Mr. Gozel, you're next, sir. Minute and a half.
As I said before, Brampton is the most diverse and most multicultural city in the world. I'm an immigrant. I got elected to the parliament. It's because of Brampton residents. I had the honor to serve as Canada's sports minister because of the citizens of Brampton. I agree the Brampton Council is very much involved in the community. I respect them. They celebrate different cultures, but we can do more. As I said before, we can celebrate diversity right here at Garden Square, so everybody knows what Brampton is all about. We can show the world that Brampton is the most multicultural city in the world. It is important to celebrate different cultures, and that's how we engage with neighbors, that's how we engage with different communities, learn from each other. Thank you.
Ms. Jeffrey, a minute and a half, please.
So I think we all need to address the elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room is Councillor Spovieri, who was within a few weeks. So before I was even sworn in, I had to caution him about the language that he was using. He's the only member of my council that has embarrassed me at my council and at the region at some of the foolish things he says. It's unfortunate, and I think leadership matters, and I think my job is to lead by example, to do the right thing, and to stand up for my community when I see things that are wrong. So this past year, when there was so much conversation about prayer in schools and the Islamic hatred and division that I saw in my community, caused me to write a letter to say how much I supported my Muslim brothers and sisters to have the opportunity to pray in school. And I got a lot of feedback, and not all of it was positive. So this is a city that struggles still with its diversity. We're not there yet, but I'm hopeful after this election. We've got some terrific candidates that have put their names on the ballot, people that I would be proud to work with, that I think will change the language, the tone, and the behavior at City Council so that I can be proud in the next term. Thank you.
Mr. Spovieri, you have a minute and a half.
Thank you so much for asking the question. I want everybody to know that I was born in southern Italy. I checked my genes. I find that I have Middle Eastern, North African, and Northern European genes. So I'm not what you call one of those typical white supremacists. That's not me. You look at my collar, I even have some brown in me. When I made those comments, I was defending Canadian values. I was defending our Canadian system from people who were badgering the Canadian system and the way we live. And I was when I said white values, I was merely giving a poke back to the person who was a racist, not because. You all know there's no such thing as white values. There's values applied to everybody. There's values of goodness and there's values of evil. And I believe in the values of goodness and fairness. And this is how I've been representing my constituents for 30 years, who's the most multicultural wards in Brampton that went from 8,000 people to 150,000 people. And they've been electing me for the last 30 years because they know that I'm not a racist. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sprovieri. All right, let's go to our fourth panelist, and that's Dr. Kervinder Gill. Dr. Gill.
Thank you. Many have touted a new hospital as a solution to Brampton's healthcare crisis, but such an endeavor, although needed, would take more than 10 years to actually become a reality. With Wynn's government leaving a legacy of more than $4 billion in cuts to frontline patient care that doctors provide, coupled with nursing layoffs, more bricks and mortar alone won't help with our crisis on the front lines here in Brampton. If you were to become our next mayor, aside from a new hospital and expanding the urgent care facility to a fully operational hospital, what is your immediate priority to undertake to address Brampton's healthcare crisis?
Mr. Gozel, you're first for a minute and a half, please.
Well, thank you very much. In 2006, Mayor Linda Jeffrey had a placard saying, "We won't close the Peel Hospital." Then, under Kathleen Wynne's government, they closed it. We need the funding. We need the funding for the proper funding for the Brampton Civic. We have shortage of beds. I will fight for Brampton with the provincial government to get the funding properly done for Brampton Civic, and we need a fully working Peel Hospital as soon as possible. So we'll work with citizens of Brampton, work with the council to bring full hospital, Peel Mayoral as a full hospital, and get the funding for the Brampton Civic Hospital. That is how you get the healthcare working.
Ms. Jeffrey, you're next. Minute and a half, please.
So Val referred to what I did as a Peel MPP, and if you recall back in 2004 when I ran, we had one hospital in Brampton. One for a city of this size. I think at that time we were probably around 350,000. It had a fire, a flood, and one working elevator. So 10 years later, after I leave the provincial government, we finally have Brampton Civic Hospital, $1 billion of health care in Brampton. We got Peel Memorial, the first phase of a 3-phase facility, and we got Erin Kids. Are we done yet? Absolutely not. Because our biggest problem is that we don't have full funding based on the number of people living here. So my first priority is to get the proper funding based on the census that we have here in Brampton. That high growth is a challenge, it's an opportunity, but I've been the one who's been successful in delivering healthcare. It doesn't happen like that. It took 10 years to get those dollars, and you're competing with every other community across Ontario. I've been successful, I will continue to be successful, and I'm probably the only person around here at this stage that has actually talked to the Minister of Health already and invited her to Brampton. I want her to see the high growth, the challenges that my residents have, and I've actually waited in those hospital waiting rooms with a sick father. So I know, I personally know, because I've lived here, I've lived the healthcare challenges that we have. So that's my job to do in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffrey. Mr. Sprovieri, you have a minute and a half, sir.
Thank you for that question. Brampton needed a hospital, a second hospital, many, many years ago. We allowed development to just continue and spiral out of control, and And now today we have 600,000 people, one hospital, and 300,000 more to come in the next 20 years. We're being neglected, as I said in my statement, by the province. We were hoping that when the Liberal government was throwing money away like it was made out of just paper, ordinary paper, that we would have got something with our, for a second hospital in Brampton. Instead, we got a drop-in center here at Peel Memorial where people go in during the day, go home, and the place is empty at night. When I become the mayor, if I do become the mayor, the first thing I will do is I will ask my council to impose a development control where we're not going to issue as many building permits to make matters worse until we get the proper hospital and proper care in Brampton.
Mr. Brown, you have a minute and a half, sir.
So the mayor just said that Brampton has done well competing against other municipalities for healthcare dollars. Well, here's the facts. Brampton has 1 bed for every 1,000 residents. In the rest of the province, it's 2.3. We have half the service that the rest of the province does, and that's not good enough. Remember the name Jamie Lee Ball? Jamie Lee Ball. She spent 5 days waiting in Emerge, and I had toured around the same time Brampton Civic, and I couldn't believe the hallway medicine. So in the legislature, we brought it up, and we grilled the health minister. What happens when you grill the health minister? They come to do damage control. They come to Brampton and announce 6 beds. 6 beds? Give me a break. And yet our mayor thanked them for their investment in their leadership. It's about time we say we deserve more. We don't deserve 2-tier healthcare. There's one standard if you're in Oakville, there's one standard if you're in Georgetown, and for some reason, we've accepted having the worst healthcare in the province in the city of Brampton, and it's time we say no.
Thank you, Dr. Gill, for your question. I now have a question submitted to this mayoral debate from Brampton's Black Community Action Network. They're also called BCAN. And this question is open to all candidates for debate in a 2-minute open discussion. And the question is, according to the Ontario Youth Action Plan of 2017, the African Canadian youth unemployment rate in the region of Peel sits at 29%, while the general youth population rate sits at 22%. If you were elected as mayor, what would you do to eliminate barriers faced by these young people and afford them the economic opportunities by lowering the high African Canadian youth unemployment rate across the region of Peel? Go ahead, Patrick.
Last Monday, I had a town hall with 120 Black Canadian leaders in Brampton to hear the challenges that are being presented in Brampton. And concern after concern was raised. Look at Brampton City Hall. Look at the representation. Look at the mayor's office. Look at the political appointments. You don't see a voice right now. And frankly, look at the interview panels at City Hall. They should reflect the mosaic of the city. There are too many barriers. And I want to thank Garnet Manny. He's been a pioneer in the community, speaking on behalf of the community. He co-chaired that a town hall for us, and we came up with a charter, 10 commitments to the Black Canadian community in Brampton of how we can create opportunities for Black youth, how we can tear down barriers, and I would encourage everyone to visit my website to learn more about it, but I think this is an area we need to spend a lot more time, a lot more energy, because it's an unacceptable barrier that exists in our community.
Go ahead, Ms. Jeffrey. Ms. Jeffrey? Yeah.
So it's easy to come in and say that you're going to set up a committee. Committees actually don't do a lot of the heavy lifting. It has to be done by council, and you have to lead by example. And I think the challenge for us as a council, so I appreciate you don't like what I'm saying, but you're going to have to listen because I have the mic. So I think it's important to put people in positions of authority so that people feel that there's an opportunity for them to be successful. So I'm one of the individuals that sits on the Police Services Board, and I'm one of the people that made sure that 2 visible minorities became promoted to that position where they were in a position of authority. Why? Because not only because of their color, but because of their quality of their work. They were the excellent candidates we had around the table. And there was resistance in the interview process that they weren't somebody that we wanted. I wanted them. And I believe in putting people in positions of authority, giving them opportunities. It has to come from the mayor's office, and you alluded to it. Have a look at my mayor's office. It's a pretty diverse crowd. It's going to stay diverse. That's what I believe. I deliver it that way. But I would say that I've never worked with a council that was so difficult to introduce new ideas to, so not receptive to the different kinds of people that we could even interview for our city manager or for any positions of authority. You got to change the people around the table. Decisions are made by those who show up. And I've showed up, and I've done the right thing.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffrey. So we've concluded 2 segments. This is our 3rd segment. Very interesting concept here. What we're going to do is we're going to ask one of the candidates to pose a question.
I think there's one more.
No, we ran out of time on that. We had 2 minutes. It was open discussion. That's the way she works. So here we go. The way it was set up was this. You want to know how? The way it was set up was it was open discussion for the question. If someone points that they want to make a comment, then they can go. We have lots of other ones. Mr. Sprovieri, hold your seat. So, coming up, what's happening now in this segment is each one of the candidates will have an opportunity to ask another candidate a question. And the order was predetermined, as we said before. We start off with Miss Jeffrey. And Miss Jeffrey, who are you posing your question to on the panel?
Mr. Brown.
Sorry?
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown, okay, go ahead.
So, Patrick, you've claimed in earlier debates that this city is going in the wrong direction. I completely disagree with you. Wherever you go, there's a cloud that hangs over you, whether it's the... Now listen to the question. The cloud that hangs over you, whether it's the allegations of sexual misconduct, the questionable nominations that are currently being investigated by the police, or the ethical breaches.
You gotta let her ask her question.
Or the ethical breaches that you were found guilty of by the Integrity Commission of Ontario. How can my residents in Brampton trust you?
Mr. Brown.
40 years ago, there was a lot of hope for Linda Jeffrey. Premier Bill Davis had endorsed her campaign, a majority of council, and to think that after 4 years of so much hope, that it would be reduced to this, to personal mudslinging. We're all better than that. Now, I'm not going to mudsling, because you know what? We're better than that here. We're better than that in Brampton. And frankly, the mayor should be better than that too.
Thank you. All right, next, I will call upon Mr. Sprovieri. Mr. Sprovieri, which candidate would you like to pose your question to, sir?
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown, go ahead, sir.
Mr. Brown, you know, I'm impressed with your solutions and suggestions and so on. The question I have for you, our mayor, present mayor, was not able to get the fair funding for things like the LRT, the hospital, and the university. From her, please, let me finish, people. From her liberal friends at Queen's Park when they were throwing money away to everyone, except for Brampton. So, given your relationship with Mr. Ford, and we know that it's not a very good relationship, what makes you believe
question time is over, Mr. Sprovieri.
That you can get us the funding?
Your question time is over, Mr. Sprovieri. Go ahead, Mr. Brown. You may answer.
No, it's a fair It's a fair question. John is right. I'm not BFFs with Doug Ford, and I'm okay with that, because you know what? I don't care if it's conservatives at Queen's Park or liberals in Ottawa. We're going to fight for this city. We're going to stand up for this city. And you know what? Here's the reality. A mayor who got more results than anyone else was Hazel McCallan. You know what? She'd tear a strip off any premier or prime minister that didn't deliver for Mississauga, and it's about time we replicate that approach. Results for Brampton, my party is the people of Brampton, and I will work with any government that will actually deliver for the city of Brampton.
Mr. Brown, who would you like to pose a question to on the panel, sir?
Well, I'll ask the question to the mayor. Recently, we had a heated debate on the Police Services Board, and the mayor's referenced that she's on that Police Services Board. Now, there was an individual that was a whistleblower on what was comments that were perceived by everyone as racist. I think when whistleblowers come forward, we applaud them, we celebrate them, and we thank them for exposing racism. Unfortunately, our mayor
That's your time for your question, Mr. Brown.
Our mayor voted to fire that individual as the chair of the police board.
Mr.
I'd
Brown?
like to ask her why.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffrey?
So he's misleading you and lying to you as usual, but so what my colleague did on Carolyn Parrish, the comments she made were terrible. They were an embarrassment. They were shameful, and I told her that. I recommended she apologize immediately, and that's what that issue is. But what Mr. Brown is talking about has nothing, those two issues are not aligned together. They're not at all, and you have no idea what you're talking about. So I appreciate you're trying to galvanize the crowd to have them believe that there's some kind of thing going on, but there isn't. My role is always to speak the truth, to push the envelope, and to ask those tough questions. And when people speak and disclose what happens in camera when they're not supposed to, that causes a problem. You have to be discreet, and we have people on our board that sometimes aren't.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffrey. Mr. Gozel, who would you like to pose your question to on the panel, sir?
Mayor Linda Jeffrey. Madam Mayor, you've been blaming the council for not getting anything done. If the council's not listening, you've been trying. I believe it's mutual respect. Every councillor is independently elected. They should be respected. There should be cooperation. And how can we believe in the new council, you will start blaming them for all your failures again?
So when I first got elected, I spent a considerable amount of time meeting with each individual councillor, asking them what their goals, what their dreams, what their ambitions were, and how I could work to help them. Remember that of the 11, 7 were new, and technically I was new too. So we had a lot of new councillors who didn't know how to do the job. I tried to coach them, I tried to mentor them, but what I can tell you is there were 4 members of council who came back who really were not interested in change and actually thwarted good ideas that new councillors brought forward. They bullied them, they were racist, and I cannot stand by when I see wrongdoing. So I did attempt, I tried multiple times to make it work, and I will continue to do that because it's the right thing to do when you're the leader.
Thank you. So this next portion, we return again to an open question, meaning that once the question is asked, it is open to the panel. If you indicate that you want to answer, you can. There is a 2-minute maximum time set aside for this. And this question is brought to us by the Peel Regional Labour Council. And their question is, over 50% of Peel working population is in poverty. And given that municipalities must have poverty reduction strategies, if elected mayor, what is your plan to help create decent work and reduce poverty in Peel? Go ahead, Mr. Brown, you're first.
Jump
Mr.
in,
Golsey, you're second.
I believe during a campaign you should present ideas and platforms for
Barbieri,
how we
third.
can address the challenges we have. I presented a poverty action plan last week at Grace United with Ted Brown that runs Regen, an incredible program that feeds 175 people a day. Thank you to Gail Miles, long-term counselor, who joined me to highlighting ways in which we can make sure, and Grant Gibson as well, how we can tackle poverty. And I would encourage, once again, to see that 10-point plan. It's on my website at votepatrickbrown.com, and I'd encourage all the candidates to put out their own action plans on how to tackle poverty. This is a real challenge in Brampton. You just go to Grace United any morning, you'll see it. 175 meals a morning. That's not acceptable in a city and a country as prosperous as where we live.
Mr. Gozel?
There's no time for studies. We need the action right now. And action is we need affordable housing in Peel, in Brampton. There's a long wait time. So I will work with developers, I'll work with builders to make sure there's affordable housing for the citizens of Brampton. At the same time, we need to bring more businesses to Brampton. That is important. You know, you got to go ask the business to come to Brampton. You know, cut the red tape at City Hall and make sure the permits are issued in a timely manner so we can bring businesses to Brampton and create more jobs and have affordable housing for all the people they need housing.
Mr. Sprovieri, final comment.
When you look at the stats, you can see why we have a problem with poverty in our community. And it's mostly, and the stats speak for themselves, that most of the people who are in poverty happen to be single parents. Parents that have to raise the children on their own. They don't have a two-income family in order to pay for the bills. That is the biggest cause of the poverty here in Peel region. So what can we do about that? Well, I'm a big proponent of providing affordable housing. 4 years ago, I almost lost my job for supporting a townhouse development in Springdale because we believed that they were very affordable. They were just in the low 200s, 200,000 range. And there was a huge uproar from the community that we didn't want townhouses in their neighborhood. But I stood by my gun. We got them approved, and people now can buy affordable townhouses. And every development that we're approving now in Brampton, there is a component of townhouses in that development. So people
Ms. Jeffrey, you have about 15 seconds if you wish to jump in.
I like practical solutions. One of the things we did at the region just a few months ago was bring forward an affordable transportation program so that people can get to work, get to doctor's appointments, get to school, to make life more affordable. It's about bringing results forward.
Alrighty, so we now move to segment 4, which features a question from each of our panel to our candidates. So the panel will ask a question and the candidates can jump in and answer. We'll start with Mr. Des Farkas, please.
So one common complaint we hear from our current provincial and federal politicians is that Brampton does not ask for funding like other cities do. Mississauga is getting 3 times the funding for its LRT than the amount Brampton would have received under the defeated LRT deal. Oakville and Vaughan received funding for new hospitals because they went to the province to ask for a sizable amount to fund their expansion. The same is true for other infrastructure projects worth billions of dollars in other Ontario cities that aren't growing at nearly the rate that Brampton is. What steps will Brampton take to secure the maximum level of funding from provincial and federal governments?
Jeffrey, you're first, Sprovieri second. Go ahead.
So what I can tell you is in the last 4 years we have, and I try to meet monthly with our federal counterparts to talk to them about what programs we can be part of. We're talking to them about Riverwalk right now. We're talking to them about Ryerson University and the cybersecurity network. The RCMP is interested in coming and working with Ryerson University. So I have initiated those conversations, but what I can tell you is when I was an MPP and worked with Brampton City Council, they actually didn't ask for anything. So I'm not aware of what they ever did before, but I can assure you, this term of office, we've been extremely strong on government relations. We talk about it at every single meeting about what programs we can ask for, because as a high-growth city, we need more healthcare, more transit, more infrastructure dollars from our federal federal and provincial counterparts. The reason being, your taxes right now are from property taxes, they're from user fees, and other levels of government. If you don't find a way to bring those partnerships together, you aren't successful in building those big infrastructure projects that we need in a city like Brampton.
Mr. Sprovieri?
The last term, council approved $60 million to invest in the Peel Memorial. And we have a facility that is really incomplete. We need to have that facility at least for emergency care, for emergency service. We also identified that Queen Street was the preferred route to have an LRT or a rapid transit system. When the province came in and said, we'll give you a small stretch on Main Street, that was for Mississauga's benefit, not for Brampton's benefit. We did not have a fight to say we want a Queen Street rapid transit system. Give us the billions that you're giving Mississauga, and we can put one on Queen Street. That didn't happen. We were fighting about whether we should go up Main Street or around Main Street, as you recall. So having a unified council will help to get what we need. We need a unified council to work together.
Thank you. Let's go to our next panelist. No, we're out of time. Sorry, Mr. Gozel. Let's go to Marilyn Vergis. You have the next question, please. Open to our panel.
The unemployment rate in Peel as of May of 2018 was 6.7%, but for young people was even higher at 13.9%. In our organization alone, every single young person has had to leave Brampton at one point or another to be able to find full-time, stable, and permanent jobs. Young people are the future of Brampton. As mayor, what is one concrete solution you will implement to create sustainable and high-quality employment that will allow young people to thrive and put down long-term roots right here in Brampton?
Ms. Jeffrey first, Mr. Gozel second.
So we've done two
Sprovieri,
things.
if we have time, third. Go ahead.
So we've done two things actually this term of office, in the fact that we've attracted Ryerson University in collaboration with Sheridan College and the Chang School as part of that. Our university is a hub. It's going to be a magnet for those who want to invest in Brampton, and I'm already having conversations with people who are from China, from the Philippines, who want to invest here, and that means they're going to bring jobs. We're also looking at the life sciences cluster that is in and around Peel Memorial, and that opportunity will bring some great jobs, working with Canon Canada, working with MDA Robotics. These are bringing the jobs and the investment that I think will help our young people going forward. But I can appreciate we have been seen as a sleeping city. You don't fix that in 4 years. It's something that has to be a long-term plan,
Go ahead and jump in,
working
folks.
with other business.
Thank you very much. I just want to go back to funding. You got to ask for funding to get it. Brampton is the only city that turns away funding. We hosted Pan Am Games. We had money for baseball and softball stadium at Bramley and Countryside, $13 million sitting on the table. I was sports minister. I was bringing those games to Brampton. That would have created jobs, international sporting events, boost to the economy, and City of Brampton and the council said no to that.
Mr. Sprovieri, Mr. Brown, go ahead, jump in if you want. Jump in if you want to comment.
Jumping in here, the question
Jump in
was
if you want
on
to comment.
the question was on employment, and the reality is we've done a lazy, lethargic job on economic development. Look what happened this summer. You know, the mayor of Caledon went and he knocked on the door and he fought and he got that Amazon fulfillment center. They looked at Brampton. They already have warehouses here. They looked at Brampton, but because we didn't go after it, we lost those jobs that could have gone to young people. Good jobs, good paying jobs. And
Mr. Sprovieri, make a comment.
You jump in here, John. You get in here.
Well, thank you. Mississauga got lucky because they had the infrastructure in place. That's why they grew. They had the airport. They had all the highways. That's why all the industries went to Mississauga when they left Toronto. Now it's Brampton's turn, we're saying. It's Brampton's turn. So we're getting some action on Mississauga Road. We got Air Canada, we got Canon, and a few other big employers.
Thank you, Mr. Sprovieri. We're out of time on that question. Hey, I want you guys to get home. You want to get home at 11 o'clock tonight? We're trying to make it work. Dr. Gill, Dr. Kavinder Gill, you have the next question for our panel, please.
Thank you. Addiction and mental health have long been neglected here in Ontario, especially in our city of Brampton, where a patient can wait more than a year to see a psychiatrist. Wynn's government left us with a legacy of operating room closures at Brampton's hospital, ballooning community specialist wait times, and 1 million patients in our province without a family doctor. Ford's new government has announced an investment of $1.9 billion over the next 10 years for mental health, addiction, and housing, the largest investment in Canada. If you are our next mayor, what are 2 specific areas you will actually prioritize Brampton's share of the funding in order to immediately assist patients struggling with mental health and addiction in our city?
Mr. Brown first, and Mr. Gill. Okay,
So
we'll go down the line. Can we make a time consideration here so that everybody gets a chance to answer this question? Okay?
So that
Go ahead.
policy document that Kulvinder talked about, I protested with you. I protested the government. We talked about together about those cuts. And that document, that 10-year commitment on mental health, I wrote that document. And I gave that speech. I gave that speech in November in Toronto because this is the dirty little secret in Ontario's healthcare system. You see it everywhere. Look at the COAST program in terms of mental health and how it's integrated with policing. You go in the hospital and you look at the shortage we have. A young person who's suicidal could have to wait 9 months when it comes to counseling. You break your arm and you go into the hospital, you're treated right away. But for some reason, as a society, we have not dealt with mental health in the meaningful way that we should. And so thank you for the question. You're bang on. The city of Brampton, if I'm mayor, will always fight for a greater investment in mental health.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor was part of Wynne government when they cut 50 residency spots in Ontario. We have shortage of doctors. We have shortage of funding. You know, as a mayor, I will fight for the hospitals. I will fight for the mental health. We need the funding. This is one of the biggest issues. We work with the police force, work with the hospital to make sure we have the proper funding for mental health.
Ms. Jeffrey. Yep.
So if this was easy, we would have fixed it a long time ago. But we all know that mental health issues have grown and changed in how we talk about it. So we're not catching up at the City of Brampton, and I can tell you in the Region of Peel, those dollars haven't been forthcoming. We have one of the lowest funded LHINs, the Local Health Integration Network, that gives money to our city. I fought for it when I was an MPP. We got some results. But you need somebody who's aggressive, somebody who knows how to work with the province of Ontario, and I'm good at doing that, and I can get those results. Thank you.
Mrs. Sprovieri.
Mental health has become an epidemic. It's going on the increase because our youth are finding so much pressure in competing in school and finding a job. And I'm glad that the Ford government has realized that steps have been taken to address this problem. Doug Ford has taken steps to provide funding, and that is a good thing. And I want to make sure that Brampton gets a share of that if I do become the mayor.
Okay. Mr. Carpel, you'd like to ask a question, please, for our panel? And we'll make a compensation here. Everybody has a minute and a half to answer the question, so it's not cutting you off and having to come out. So we'll make a change then, please. So give each of them a minute and a half to answer the question from the panel. Okay. Mr. Carpel, please.
As you know, we belong to an organization called New Brampton. The next question I'm going to ask is the question New Brampton took birth. The tax revenue ratio for any successful city to thrive should be 60% tax income to the city from homeowners and 40% from the rest. The city of Brampton, the ratio is 79% from homeowners and 21% from the rest. One of the worst mixes in the GATA. This is a major reason Brampton homeowners suffer with higher property taxes, which over a long period will drop the value of your homes. How do all the candidates plan to tackle this issue? And Mrs. Jeffrey, as a mayor for the past 4 years, what specific steps did you personally initiate to change the ratio and reduce the property taxes for Bramptonians?
Let's start. Can we start with you, please, Ms. Jeffrey? Start with Ms. Jeffrey, please. Minute and a half, please, for each of these answers.
Oh, this is a big issue, and it's been something that has been a problem for Brampton City Council because for decades, the development community, the tail was wagging the dog. We were letting development happen with unchecked. In fact, for many of you who are older in the audience, you may remember the Kodak Lands Council at the time completely converted, I think it was 45 acres, into residential, which could have been commercial. So once those lands are gone, they're gone. So what I've tried to do is bring more commercial industrial into the city to help change the ratio, and Councillor Gurpreet Dillon on my council has put in a motion so that we aren't converting any more of those lands. It's going to take time. It's a different mindset, and to do things differently has been challenging for this council.
Mr. Sprovieri, 1 minute and a half, please.
The problem has been that we just keep approving more and more housing when the employment is not coming to Brampton. This has been an alarming, since '93 I became aware of this problem, and I've been fighting to bring more revenue to the city through providing executive housing in Ward 9 and 10, where we've attracted numerous business owners who have established their businesses in Brampton, and they're in the Castlemore area. If anybody's familiar with it, it's mostly the people, professionals and business owners have come to Brampton to set up their business. And this is what I've done to help the problem, and I will continue to do that. And perhaps we need to look at maybe slowing down the residential growth in order for the employment to catch up a bit.
Mr. Brown, sir, minute and a half.
Well, thank you to New Brampton for their courage to expose this challenge. And frankly, they have put forward ideas to the city of Brampton on how this can be rectified. The vision, the 2040 vision highlights employment corridors. Existing right now in Brampton, there is an opportunity for employment of 115,000, just looking at the employment corridors in that vision. But we have to be aggressive in pitching the city of Brampton. Right now, we've seen property taxes soar, for the first time higher than Toronto. We're becoming a city where it's challenging for businesses to operate. You know, when the mayor took over 4 years ago, the ratio was 77 to 23. It's got worse. It's now 79 to 21. One of the worst ratios in terms of a residential to non-residential mix in the province. It's not getting better, it's getting worse, and we need a new approach to make sure we can solve this.
Mr. Gozel.
Oh, this is alarming. 79 to 21%. Look at Detroit, what happened in Detroit. That's what happened in Detroit when the property taxes at homeowners were so high, there were no businesses. We need to cut the red tape at City Hall. Businesses need the surety and the timelines. We need to set timelines to issue the permits. Then we have to go ask the businesses. I have extensive experience on trade missions as a federal representative, and we can bring businesses to Brampton. We need more businesses coming to Brampton, but they need the environment. They need the city council and city hall working with them. That's the only way we can do that imbalance. So more Bramptonians are staying home and working in Brampton, and the businesses are paying more taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gozel. So I now have a question from the Peel Poverty Action Group. And their question is, if you are elected as mayor, what steps will you take to create and build new social and subsidized affordable rental housing in Brampton for the growing legions of working poor? Please give each one of the candidates a minute and a half. Start with you, Mr. Brown, please.
13,597. That's the amount of people in Peel Region on the wait list for affordable housing. The list grows 13% a year. It's a 13-year wait list. When I talked earlier tonight about announcing my poverty action plan, that was specific steps that we could do to create more supply, to have a greater supply of affordable housing. We can't accept that. We can't accept a 13-year wait list in the city. And so I'm glad this has been injected into this debate. And I hope, like I mentioned earlier, I hope all other candidates put forward their poverty action plan and how we can tackle this horrific 13-year wait list.
Mr. Gozel.
We need to build more affordable housing. As a mayor, I will go after federal and provincial governments for funding to build affordable housing and work with builders and developers to make sure they have a space for social housing, affordable housing. That's the only way we can cut that waiting list. We can talk about committees, we can talk about studies, but need an action plan. Action plan is to build more houses for those people.
Ms. Jeffrey.
So I want to compliment Mr. Brown because he's a really quick study. He knew nothing about affordable housing about 2 months ago when he was running for the leadership, and he knew nothing when he was running to be the regional chair. But this is a very serious issue, and an action plan isn't necessarily how you're going to get there. So I'm the only person on this stage that actually put together, I'm the only person who put together a plan to develop housing for our young people who had no shelter. We had no youth shelter in Brampton, and council had never worked on it, the region had never worked on it, and our young people had to leave Brampton to go to Mississauga, and when they were full, they had to go into an adult shelter. That's just wrong. I like to get things done. I'm impatient to make this happen. The wait list is 6 to 8 years, and I appreciate that the number Mr. Brown has given us, but that's not the right number. It's still too high. But if you don't have the will, if you don't put some money behind it, you got to put some skin in the game. Brampton needs to put some skin in the game, as does the region. And we're far behind where Mississauga is, and we need to bring in private partnerships because this is a community solution that we collectively need to work on.
Mr. Sprovieri.
The 13,000 people on the waiting list, we found out that a lot of these people have registered in different municipalities. They've registered in Vaughan, in Toronto, in Oakville, and some in Brampton. Now, we've been trying to find out how many of these 13,000 have actually have double or triple or quadrupled their listing in different municipalities. And we haven't got that answer yet, but I've asked the Peel Region staff to bring that answer to us. There's a new development coming in East Brampton. It's called Area 47. And I've already told the developers that they need to provide some low-rise, affordable condominiums for people who can afford. And that is the developers are already doing the plans to bring the low-rise, affordable condos in East Brampton.
Thank you, Mr. Sprovieri. All right, we're going to go to our next portion here, which is our rapid-fire question. Please give each of the candidates 1 minute to respond. 1 minute. So our first question, submitted by many of you on our website, both at Brampton Focus and Brampton Voters. We thank you for your input, and we appreciate you getting involved in the political process. On October 17th, Canada is slated to legalize cannabis. If you were elected mayor of Brampton, would you consider to opt out Brampton as a municipality, as many others have done, or would you consider licensing the sale of cannabis within the city? Mr. Gozel, you're first. 1 minute, please.
I would love to opt out of this sale of marijuana in Brampton. We don't need it. And if it's mandated by the province, if we have to do it, I will put it in an industrial area away from where the communities are, where children are, where schools are. Thank you.
Ms. Jeffrey, 1 minute, please.
So it's unrealistic to say that you don't want it in your community. It's already here. So it's irresponsible, but our council, the new council in December, will be making that decision about whether we opt in or out. It is a revenue generator, and it is something our young people are already participating in. I'd rather be responsible and find a way to make it work, just as we do with alcohol in the city. So I will work with my council to come back with a great solution.
Mr. Sprovieri, 1 minute.
I've never smoked marijuana. I know my boys have, but I believe that legalizing marijuana is a good thing because it's going to cut a lot of crime out, which will give the police more time to look after the more serious problem. I do believe that cannabis should be allowed in certain parts of Brampton, so our youth or whoever wants it don't have to drive to Toronto, Mississauga, or Windsor, or whatever they sell it. So I believe that we should make it available in the right locations here in Brampton.
Mr. Brown, you have the last toke on this question here. Take on this question.
So the reality is 3 years ago, a government got elected on a mandate. Part of their mandate was to legalize marijuana. That debate has sailed. It's over. Now the question is to make sure how that can be done in a responsible manner. And Belle's right, it shouldn't be near school areas, and Linda Jeffrey is right when she says it's here already. But the one thing I'd like to add to this debate is what the Peel Police Association has asked for. Drug-impaired driving is going to be very serious. They have asked for equipment, resources, and technology to make sure if someone's driving drug-impaired, that they're held accountable, that it's just as dangerous as drunk driving, and we're not prepared at this point to be able to adequately handle it. And so I want to make sure that the provincial and federal government that are getting big resources from this provide some to our regional police to make sure we can keep our roads safe.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. So we continue with our rapid-fire questions. Each candidate, I should say, will have a 1-minute response time. Yesterday, Toronto had a dedicated arts mayoral debate. Montreal spends about $55 per resident on the arts, while Toronto is close to $24 per resident. Brampton, for years, has underspent on the arts. The consequence is that Brampton lacks an identity, and the Arts and Culture Master Plan, recently approved by Council, will take time to implement and review. What commitments can you make to infuse the arts community with the support and the resources it needs to the immediate future and start to develop Brampton's art community? We'll start with Madam Mayor Linda Jeffrey, please. 1 minute.
So we did just pass a arts master plan, but you can't do these things without money. And really what past councils did was essentially starve our arts community. We've put now $1 million into it, but I don't think that's enough. I actually think that the arts is a great tourism generator. It's a great pride generator, and that's something that we're going to be working on in a future council. But again, there's no point in having a plan if you don't actually deliver it, if you don't actually work at it, and if you don't invest in it. We, as a future council, this needs to be a priority because we have a lot of great artists here, whether it's Director X or whether it's Alicia Cara. We have some great artists who want to come back and want to perform here, and we want to encourage them as former graduates of the City of Brampton.
Mr. Sprovieri, 1 minute, sir.
Thank you. Arts defines the community. I believe in arts, I believe in entertainment, I believe in supporting, and anytime there's ever been an opportunity to support the arts, I've done so. And if I do become the mayor, we have to look at bring in the artists that are leaving our city and say, what do we need to do to keep you here in the city? And probably one of the things we need to do is to have a larger venue than the Rose Theatre to have more people can attend and support the arts and for larger festivals. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, 1 minute, please, sir.
As much as I've been critical about failed political leadership in Brampton, one piece of credit that goes to past councils is the fact you got this beautiful building built. This is a great institution for the city of Brampton, and frankly, arts is an economic driver. If you are bringing a business leader to the community, they're going to look at the quality of life their family has. They're going to look at the arts. And so I think it is important that we continue to make strides in Brampton, that this is important, that arts and culture is a great economic driver, and we should make sure that this is a city where our artists are celebrated, where culture is a tool we use to bring investment to the city of Brampton.
Mr. Gozo.
I do agree with Mayor Jeffrey and Patrick on the arts aspect. We need to invest in arts. We have Rose Theatre, but we don't celebrate Rose Theatre enough. We don't promote it enough across even Brampton, never mind outside of Brampton. We need to promote our artists. We need to promote Rose Theatre. And we should come up with some of the tax initiatives. City of Toronto have introduced some of the tax initiatives to the Arts Council and arts people. That's what we should be looking at to bring more arts to Brampton. Thank you.
So as we continue with our rapid fire questions, again, 1 minute for each one of the candidates. Brampton is the home of the new Ryerson University campus. Studies confirm a vibrant transit system helps build and service a modern city to be future ready. Mississauga has their LRT running north and south right up the spine of Huron-Ontario, but stopping at Steeles. In October 2015, at 1:30 a.m. right here in the Rose Theatre, the current council voted 7-4 to reject the Main Street LRT plan, linking Mississauga to Brampton that Queen's Park had approved. As a result, Brampton lost some $400 million in funding and the LRT. Further, Bramptonians have been enraged that the same current council has wasted over $3 million to explore alternative routes that were previously rejected. How would you address an LRT if elected mayor? Mr. Sprovieri, you're first. 1 minute, please, sir. Mr. Sprovieri, go ahead.
We did not reject the LRT. We did not want an LRT built for the Mississauga students. We wanted an LRT built for the Brampton students, which are east-west.
Mr. Brown, you have 1 minute.
Vaughan is getting a beautiful, they have it actually now, a beautiful new subway. Scarborough is getting 10 times the funding that Brampton is getting, despite Brampton being bigger. What's the difference? The difference is we have they had politicians, they had mayors and MPs and MPPs that stood up for their community. You know, the reality is the new premier has said he doesn't like LRTs. He wants something that's more meaningful. And so it's going to be an even harder pitch to get inadequate transit. We need transit that will fix Brampton for a generation. Real significant transit, north-south, east-west. The reality is 60% of our commuters go east-west. This was a bad deal. It was negotiated very badly. The fact that Brampton would get one-tenth that a smaller community would get is unacceptable. Look what Mississauga's getting. Look what Vaughan's getting. We sold ourselves short. Scarborough got offered a rinky-dinky LRT, and they demanded more. It's about time we demand more for the city. Brampton deserves more.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Gozel.
Well, it again comes down to the divided council. We need respect. We need one council. We need the LRT. We can choose an alternate route, and that works. We have Sheridan College. We have university. No, that is going to be kind of satellite university. As a mayor, I will push for a full university. And also at the same time, as Patrick mentioned, we need east-west connection. Provincial government gave the funding, but council didn't ask the federal government for the funding. Scarborough got both levels of government funding. Vaughan's getting all the funding. So as a mayor, I will go after both levels of government to get the funding done for the transit.
Thank you, Mr. Gozel. Ms. Jeffrey.
So as someone who sat on this stage at, I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and made what I think was a historically bad decision for the city of Brampton, I supported the LRT into our downtown, and in fact, I would have pushed it right to our borders at Mayfield. I think that would have been the right thing to do. I lobbied as effectively as I could, but when you have people on council who don't listen to their residents and didn't understand that this is an affordability issue for many of our residents, whether it's transit or education, those are the great levelers in our community that can make such a difference and can make life easier for all of our residents. We need more transit, and I think it would be easier for me to talk to Mr. Ford than for you, Patrick.
All right, so we continue with our